everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Blessing Ebietoma, and in today's video I'll be teaching you how to sew this beautiful bustier gathers dress. This is a continuation of the last tutorial that I uploaded, so if you've not seen that video, you want to go straight to my YouTube channel to see that video first, because there I explained the cutting process. Let's get started. I've gone ahead to transfer the pattern to the fabric, and I added half-inch seam allowance on all sides except the sides that I will be joining, because I've already added 1.5 inch seam allowance. And I also cut out 2 inches for the front, like 2 inches each for the front, because I'll be using the same fabric for the lining piece. Then now I am using bias tape to turn the head of the back. I'm using my office pin to pin it down because this fabric stretches. I don't want it to move around. After that, when you pin bias on both sides, this is the neck part of the back. I've gone ahead to sew it, only the neck first. Then the next thing now that I'll be doing, I'll be working on the skirt part and the back. So I'm pinning one part of the skirt part and then the other part of the top part on it. So I'll be using half inches now to shape it down. The half-inch allowance we added, I'll be using it to join it just like this. And I will do the same thing on the second side of the back too. So I've gone ahead to iron the back after sewing the second side, and I came up, I sewed the down of the where I'm supposed to add the zipper. I joined it first by 3 inches. I came up by 3 inches, then I ironed it out so I can have this line now. So this is the line that I'll be sewing my invisible zip to. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm using my pin now to pin it down. I created that line, so it is going to serve as a guide, and that line now is my zipper allowance. So if you use 1.5 inch zipper allowance or 1 inch zipper allowance, you are going to iron that 1 inch out. So you will place the zip on it like this, and then you will pin it down. Make sure that you are pinning it down on the exact allowance you added to it, so it is going to be balanced when you are done. As you can see, I'm just checking out the allowance if it's accurate, and then making sure before attaching my pin to it. Another thing you should take note of is that the midpoint of each of the back, it has to align. Make sure, because this is the part where you can make correction. For example, one is longer than the other. Before attaching the zip, if you check it properly and you find out that one is longer than the other, this is the point whereby you can stitch it. You still have the opportunity to stitch it to make sure that your zip, one part is not jumping up and the other part is not jumping down. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about this middle. Can you see that mine is in alignment? I made sure of it first, then I've gone ahead to sew it. After sewing it, the next thing that I'll be doing, I'll be working on the front parts. So you will do the same thing we did. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to arrange the bustier. Starting from the down, I will pin it all the way to the up, just like this. So after pinning it down now, I'm going to mark out the half-inch allowance we added. I'm marking it out because I want accuracy. I don't want room for mistakes. So if you know that you can do it without marking it out, no problem. Just make sure that you are sewing only half-inch. I've gone ahead to sew it. Then I also went ahead to sew the other part. Remember I told you that I cut out 2 for each side using the same fabric. So I'm going to go to my sewing machine now to stitch that up together like that. Then I'm done with, I've sewed it down. Now I'm going to top stitch. Where you are going to top stitch is the part you want to use for your lining. So any part you top stitch, that part automatically becomes your lining. So now we'll go ahead to sew all sides together. I've just joined them together. Then I've gone ahead to join them. Can you see how it is turning out? Then I'm going to attach the skirt part to this up. Before attaching it, I'm going to look for the midpoint of the top. I'm going to look for the midpoint, and I'm going to look for the midpoint of the skirt part. This is because the material is stretchy. Again, you don't want it to be tilting towards the left side or towards the right side when you are done sewing. So you are going to pin it now from the midpoint to the other side, and from the midpoint to the other, to the left and right, just like so. Make sure the 2 midpoints are touching each other. Then you start pinning from there to the left, you pin from there to the right. So again, I'm marking my half-inch again. That's where I'll be sewing. So I'll go ahead to mark my half-inch. In the cutting tutorial, I mentioned that I won't be using breast pad, wooden, or any other thing to pad the bust, because I want it to come out exactly as the style we are recreating. Now, to get the down parts, place your fabric, your the top on the table. Determine your length. For my clients now, I have length is 16, the full length is 37. So you are going to now measure from that place to the table, whatever the amount is. When I measured mine, I got 11.5 inches. So you are now going to go back to the table, and then you are going to mark. I added 1 inch, so I'm marking 12.5 inches. So I hope you understand what I'm saying. Just place it on the table, measure to the length of the full length of your dress. Of course, you have to pay attention to the part you cut out for the off shoulder. You remove that part, so you can even start from the half length, then measure to the length of your client, or to the length of, if you are the one recreating it for yourself. So I'm just going to mark a straight line across now.
I'm using 2 yards of vintage fabric for this down part. I made mention of it in the cutting tutorial. I'm using 2 yards of vintage fabric, and I'm using the whole of the 2 yards of vintage fabric. I folded the 2 ends together. The 2 ends has the same pattern, just the middle have different patterns. So I just folded it into 4, and I'm cutting it out.
So when you are done now, what you are going to do now is that you are going to run loose stitch, 2 lines of loose stitch on the upper part, and then you will use 1 inch to bend the hem of the dress. So after doing that, you will now go ahead now to draw gathers on the loose stitch you are sewn out. You are going to be careful, you are going to pay attention to it, and you are not going to be in a hurry. If you are in a hurry, you are going to cut the thread. So you will be as patient as possible. After cutting out the loose stitch, make sure that before you start sewing the loose stitch, before you start dragging the loose stitch, look for the middle and chalk the middle of the pieces, the gathers pieces, before you start dragging it. So now, if you can see what I'm doing, I only place the midpoint of the gathers on the midpoint of the skirt part of this top of this dress we are making now. Then I'm dragging it, making sure that the sides are aligning. I'll go to the other side too. The midpoint is still intact. I'm going to pin it down so it won't move. Then now I'm going to drag the gathers now to the end of the black part, that part we want to join to the gathers. Then once it's now in alignment, the next thing now I will do is I'm just going to start arranging it. Can you see? I'll just start arranging it like so. So after you know that you are done arranging it and everything is looking like the way you want it to be, you go ahead now to stitch it. I'll be showing you exactly how I will be stitching it. First of all, you pin it down to the fabric, arrange it very well first on your table, then go ahead to stitch. So to stitch this part now on my fabric, remember that we made 2 lines of loose stitch. We'll be sewing the middle because we want these gathers to be arranged. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm not sewing on any of the lines, I'm sewing in the midpoints. So when you just sew all the way, make sure that you are sewing the middle. That's one way to get gathers that is accurate, gathers that is arranged, gathers that looks very, very good. Just sew in the middle. When you are done sewing in the middle, you will now come down. Then you are going to remove that thread. You will take out time again to remove that thread. That's the price you pay for accuracy. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm not going to lose on the one I sewed though. I'm going to remove it. This is what we have. Can you see how arranged this gathers is looking? So if you remove, when you are done removing that extra thread, if you think it's not balanced, you can go ahead to sew another line on it. So after that, when I say balance, I mean that if you think you have loosed where you're not supposed to lose, you have sew another line on it. So now the next thing, we are going to shape this dress. Show your bust measurement. First of all, you divide it into 2, and then you put the whatever you got there. Then you check. I have 3 inches. Now I'm going to divide the 3 inches into 2. I'm going to mark 1.5 inches. I'm marking the 1.5 inches again, and I'm connecting the line. You measure your under bust, the same thing, divide it by 2, and then you're going to mark what you have. I have 4 there. Divide it by 2 again, and I'm marking one part. The other part will go to the other side. I'm connecting the line like so. Lastly, the end of the black fabric, that's where you measure your hip measurement. So I'm just measuring my client's hip measurements. I have 3.5 inches. I'm now sharing it into two again, and I'll connect the line like so, and then I will just shape it downwards. So what I'm going to do now is that after connecting the lines, I'm going to give the other parts. For example, the bust measurement, we had 1.5 inch extra, so I'm shaping it here too. We had 3 inches sewing allowance, so 1.5 inch here, and the other measurements to the other side. So give one to the left and the other to the right, just like so. Then now I'm going to sew it all the way downwards. Before sewing it, please make sure that all the sides are accurate. What I'm going to do now is that when I'm sure that all the sides are accurate, because if it's not accurate at this point, you can still make corrections that will not stress you. So check if it's accurate. If the waist they are aligning, check it. The parts where you are joining the gathers, check if the black part is not longer than the other. Check for accuracy. Once you are sure, look at what I'm doing, I'm checking. Once you are sure that all the lines are accurate and everything, they are okay the way you want it, the way it's supposed to be, then you go ahead to pin it down so they don't move. If one part is longer than the other, let's say where you are supposed to join the gathers, one is coming downwards than it should, you can go ahead to sew it upwards. So I've gone ahead to shape it, and this is what we have. Look how beautiful the dress is turning out, and look at it. This is it on my dress form, looking so beautiful. This is it on my client, and she absolutely loved the dress. If you've seen this tutorial to this point, leave a comment. If you found this video useful, leave a comment. If you have a question, also do well to leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video to those who you think will find it useful, and turn on your notifications so you will get notified when I upload my next video. Thank you for watching.